And the other thing I wanted to ask you is what does that mean, building government trust? What does that look like? What could we do to build that trust with those groups?
I believe the first part is the frontline law enforcement, because they are typically those most active out, pulling cars over, trying to do proactive and preventative enforcement. But it also relates to probation, district attorney's office, most components of the criminal justice system. But I've also found that the same applies even for social services components, community-based organizations. It takes a while to build trust in, I should say, systems.
It's like a relationship or communications.
It is. So once relationships are built over time, then communication improves. And
before you moved on, I wanted to ask you, you said it wasn't territorial and they don't identify as gangs. In my time, we had the Crips and the Bloods, and you could see them coming. What identifies them then? Do we know? Can you tell by looking at them, or do they look alike in some way, or do they wear a ring, or
Yes, Supervisor Frost, that's a good question. It changes and it depends. So not all groups behave this way, but oftentimes it used to be that Crips and Bloods had very clear territory, and also Crips wore blue and Bloods wore red, as well as the Norteño and Sureño. Norteño wore red and Sureño wore blue. That is, I'll just say that's much less common because for a couple reasons, but one in particular, a trend, again, across the country, is that they don't want to be so easily identified, especially by law enforcement. There are sometimes tattoos and other things, but again, it evolves over time.
I kind of harken back to when I was younger. There was a program called Scared Straight that you're probably very familiar with, and that was the fulcrum of that program, if I recall correctly, was taking young people, mostly young men who had histories of criminal behavior, not just gun violence, but exposing them to what it's like to be in prison, and to hear directly from those that didn't have the benefit of working with interventionists to put them on the right track, and consequently became prisoners. And those were some, I remember those videos being very shocking just to watch from the outside in. Is there any efficacy that you know of that comes from programs like that really try to impress upon kind of the younger minds of what, trying to really link the consequences you can expect with the behaviors that you're engaged with today?
Yeah. Yes, Supervisor Ernest. So that's actually Scared Straight is one of the most studied, and I do have to tell you it was one of the few programs that had a negative outcome and actually increased violence, which is so because of the manner of it. You mentioned linking consequences. That part is good, but it's done in a different way. There are about 15 or so other types of programs to deal with youth who are at risk, to again link them to consequences and to understand them. But that is one program that they actually found had a reverse outcome. Interesting.
What about positively themed programs that hinge on consequence? So, for instance, instead of exposing folks to, here's the life of incarceration you can expect, maybe looking at it from the standpoint of here's a life you can expect if you stay in school, you excel at your studies, you're able to participate in athletics or art or the sciences, whatever it might be, but really kind of stress the positive activities that I think we probably know, both anecdotally and with probably plenty of data, really can affect and be, life-changing elements to a young person's life that can, steer them away from, participating in gun violence.
Yes, the programs that seem to work the best have a balanced approach, which is to not shy away from the consequences, but to do it in a more positive or somewhat of a nurturing approach, meaning a lot of these individuals that we're talking about, youth, young adults, have not had that, and it's been lacking or missing in their lives. And so the balanced approach, while not shying away from the negative consequences, has what's been proven to be most successful.
What do we know, Eric, today about the reasons, the main reasons why, especially in a quote-unquote gang context, that young people would kind of gravitate to normalizing gun violence? Is it economics? Is it, and when I say economics, is it like, for instance, drug sales, narcotic sales? Or is it the sense of belonging because they don't have that sense of belonging from what would otherwise be, a strong family bond? Is there any data or research that you are, familiar with that tells us, what drives that 16-year-old to, go buy that, 9mm for protection, or is it, is he buying it for the purpose of, committing a robbery?
One could say there's as many reasons as there are individuals that get engaged in it, but a lot of what is cited is that typically they are in an underserved, impoverished neighborhood. Oftentimes there is a lack of family support, so they attempt to find a sense of belonging some other way, which they find that in, say, a gang. And then I've heard personally, because I sat down with individuals in this lifestyle, and they often tell me the reason they carry a gun is for protection, because everyone's carrying a gun and they feel they have to carry it for their own protection. And there are also other reasons. That's just sort of a small sample for you.
Okay. Last comment I guess I have for you is, or suggestion is, that as we're going to hear, the successes of the Lifetime Legacy campaign and the American Child Death Initiative, I think in large part have been very successful when it comes to, I don't want to call it low-hanging fruit, it is, but when it comes to the things that we can affect more directly, for instance, infant sleep-related deaths or perinatal conditions. But the other two leading causes of death that are part of that initiative is reducing third-party homicides and child abuse-like homicides in the African-American youth population. I would really encourage us not to lose sight of those two parts of the challenge, because those are, I suspect, are going to be the ones that are going to be most challenging to reduce both the number of deaths and the disparity. So I think whatever we decide that county should or can be doing to lower gun violence, we actually already have, I think, a very strong construct to hone it in on that particular subpopulation that arguably, is more victim to gun violence than any other population. So I would strongly encourage you, if you haven't already, to get very familiar with the challenge around those two leading causes of death, to do so.